how pleased I am that Zoom allows the intimacy of this meeting.
Absolutely, 100% agreed. All right, so my first question to you is, what was your motivation to get into coding and mathematics, considering that at your time, the only science available to women was botany?
Well, I was a studious child and apparently developed quite early a skill in mathematics. I really enjoyed it. That's what I wanted to do. And I had to change schools twice in order to get tuition because the science subjects were really not considered suitable, not even respectable for girls. But I did eventually get tuition at a boys' school and really aimed in my life to become a great academic mathematician. But as soon as I started working, which was at the age of 18, I realized I did not have it in me to be that sort of academic. But I was lucky because the computer industry just came along at that time. And you needed mathematics to work in computing in the early days. And Himanshi, it was like falling in love again. I could not believe that I should be paid so much for doing something so enjoyable. And so I fell into computing and coding quite early on. I'm classed as a late pioneer of the industry, and I'm in a couple of computer museums in England and in California. So you see before you a museum piece.
Wow, that's amazing and extremely inspiring that you went against all odds to pursue what you wanted to do. So my next question to you is, how did you keep fighting in the face of adversity despite people not acknowledging your work as a woman recurrently? How did you keep going ahead when you know folks would reject the deals just by looking at the fact that you're a woman?
Well, I hope it's not a tactless thing to say, but I understand that misogyny is India's oldest tradition, but we have it in Europe as well. And I certainly found myself being rejected, and more particularly, more importantly, my ideas rejected because of my gender. But I have a personality, Himanshi, that really the more somebody tells me I can't do something, the more determined I become. And so I did pick myself up, brush myself down, put a smile on my face, and go in again. And it was a crusade, really, a crusade not just for me, but a crusade for women generally. And so it's lovely to meet women from all over the world and see how wonderfully you have progressed.
Absolutely. And you know, that's another thing about being a girl or a woman in STEM, that there will be many challenges, but rather than sitting down and taking it as a setback, you should try and overcome it. Like you said, that you would put a smile on your face and you would take it as a challenge and you would want to overcome it. So that's the kind of attitude we want women in STEM to develop to progress ahead.
And there is nothing in the computing industry that really stops women achieving. You don't need physical strength. You don't need a low voice. You know, it is all that matters is the ideas in your head and what you can actually give to the project. And we approach things in a different way. So when we're part of a team, we're a really valuable orthogonal entry to that team's activities.
Absolutely. All right. So my next question to you is, can you throw some light on founding the software company Freelance Programmers, which with a capital of just £6, creating job opportunities for women and even adopting the name Steve?
Well, nowadays, when people start a software company, the first thing they do is raise the money. But in my generation, it would be ridiculous for a woman to try and raise money for a high-tech business like that. So my company, Freelance Programmers, which was exactly what it was, really started very, very small on my dining room table. And year by year, we clawed our way up until we became a respectable corporate, much like any other. But it wasn't, I never set out to make money. In fact, people talk about my overnight success, but it took me a long, long time before the company ever paid a dividend. Microsoft took 10 years. We took 25 years before we paid a dividend. But the sheer, what was I talking about? Sorry. What was I talking about? What was your question?
So my question was, how was it founding a company, which I think you have answered, creating job opportunities for women and adopting the name STEAM?
Yeah, I was talking about how we started so small, and really we managed without things. We bartered for things. We really found ingenious ways to do things better, cheaper, faster. And that was quite an incentive that we didn't have money. It worked in our benefit. But I was not motivated by making money. Mine was a crusade for women. It was to offer opportunities for women and girls to take their full place in society, to be able to progress a vigorous professional career. And that was what it was all about. And so when I had difficulties, I knew that I was fighting not only just for me, but for women of my generation and young women coming up behind me. I had to dissemble, and we were working from home. So my name's Stephanie Shirley. Shirley is almost like a double feminine, two women, Stephanie, and then Shirley, which is my husband's family name. We really had to counter that. And when I got no reply to my letters, I started writing as Steve Shirley, Steve, that masculine name. And people began to respond to my letters, which is a horrible comment on modern society. Yeah. And I think that still applies a little bit today. In England, we have a lot of androgynous names like Joe or Leslie, where you can't really tell what the gender of somebody is. And as we move forward, that idea of anonymizing the speaker, anonymizing the source, it becomes more and more important. In particular, as regards false news, that's the same problem, looked at in a different way.
Absolutely, agree. All right, my next question to you is something along the lines of your answer. Why do you think men belittle women's capabilities?
Well, that's a big, big question, isn't it? I think some men actually develop an unconscious hatred of women early in life. I don't know whether the fear comes from some relationship with their mother that has gone wrong, but many cultures see women as either bad women or good women, and the bad women have to be punished, really punished for our sexuality. And the good women really, they're not really listened to until they have some power. It's no use being a good woman at the bottom of the pyramid in your organization. You have to have a little bit of power and learn how to use power.
Absolutely. And this is something that even the statistics can tell us, that there are a lot of women in STEM, but there are very less women in higher positions in STEM. And even with coding and mathematics, that is a huge problem, because you need to be at the top level to actually be able to create a change or do something about it.
I do believe that power is not a question of position, though. It's a question, you can have power wherever you are sitting in the world. you don't have to be the chief executive or the president, or in your case, the founder. You have power by your personality, by what you do, by everything that you say in body language and in words. And power is easy to abuse, as we know from world politics, but it is something that all women can aspire to in their family, in their village, in their city, in their university. This is something that we can all do. Find something that you really enjoy doing, and then do it with all your heart and soul.
Absolutely. 100% agree. You should be able to do whatever you can at whichever position of power you are at. Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. My next question to you is, since fake news has become more prevalent, scientific credibility has decreased. Example, people are doubting the vaccines and they're also believing that 5G is dangerous. So, how do you think we can instill the common people's faith back into the scientific community?
Well, you're hinting at this issue of false news, but you can give credibility when you speak in lay language. You started then talking about 4G and so on. Now, if you go too technical, you've lost me, and you've lost all your power. And so spokespeople have to be consistent in their behavior, really to prove themselves as an overall trustworthy person. And nothing in high tech really goes against that. And if you're going to be an expert, that means that you're experienced, you're qualified, you're skilled, you're intelligent, but the trustworthiness is about basic things: honesty, fairness, being unselfish and caring. And that business of unselfishness, of really thinking what is good for your community, to me is always very important. Just being intelligent and doing good things is not enough.
Absolutely.
I think I think if you show that you care about other people, you may make lots of mistakes, we all do, but if you show that you care by using their language, by using their I've worn a silk shirt today because I know silk is something that is valued in India. You have to become part of it, show that you care, show that you try, use the same body language. And that is hard for older people to do, of course. Himanshi, I expect you to be able to travel the whole world and be able to adapt to the different cultures.
Yes, absolutely. And I completely agree with when you said that, speaking in their language, or these very small nuanced things that you can incorporate to make them believe, or to tell them that yes, this can be done, or yes, this is possible. And simplifying the scientific jargon to layman language so that they understand what you're saying, so that they can relate to it. That is what we need the scientific community to do.
Yes. I am a scientist, and I follow the scientific method. If I do something and it works, I do more of it. If it doesn't work, I don't do it again and I try something else. And that's what science is all about.
Absolutely. All right. My next question to you is, what incident or incidents ushered you into the territory of philanthropy? Or what was your purpose of later getting into philanthropy? And what is your vision as a philanthropist for that very purpose?
Well, how I got into philanthropy is really, I've been the recipient of charity. I've been a refugee that came to England as an unaccompanied child, and that has driven my life. It means that I know that there are things in me that I need to do. I know that my life was saved because I was saved from annihilation early on. And so I have to make the life that was saved really worth saving. And that has been a tremendous motivation for me and is as valid today as it was 80 years ago. I come from a family tradition of public service, and I think that impacts as well. Is what I'm doing in the public interest? I've been a public servant, and that gave me some skills, I suppose. But I'm very conscious that I try to think for myself, but not always of myself. So I'm really trying to make the difference in the world. Can I make the world a tiny little bit fairer than the world that I found? From the philanthropy point of view, I started off, oh gosh, it's wonderful, I've made some money, what am I going to do with it? How can I make it worthwhile? And I did channel serious funds back into the IT industry from which it stems. But the real joy of philanthropy is the pleasure that I get from giving. And I soon found that I needed to focus, as I had done in business, in order to get pleasure myself from my giving. And so I focused on what are the things that I know and care about. And there are only really two: information technology and autism, which was my late son's condition. So I focus on those. And then I do things that are pioneering. I've always been research. I don't want to do things that you did last week, but a little bit better. And so I want to do new things that I'm a pioneer and that, if successful, make a real difference in the world. So pioneering and strategic. And that has driven my philanthropy. And I haven't really moved away from that. I'll occasionally do something completely off mission, but in general, that's what my philanthropy is about. That's how I think I can not only make a difference because I'm skilled and knowledgeable in the sectors, but actually get much more pleasure because it's a reciprocal. We shouldn't finish up the giver, the donor, the receiver. This is something that we can do together.
Absolutely, and that is wonderful. So my next question to you is, you've written 2 books. So I wanted to ask you, how do you manage to take time out to even write 2 books? You are already doing so many things. And if you could just throw some light upon both of those.
Well, I don't do much except work in IT and for autism. We have a very quiet, private family life. We live quietly, we live modestly. I read a lot. I like ideas, and my life really allows me to think, to hear other people's ideas, to make my own assessments. A lot of people have asked, how did you possibly create such a successful company at the same time as looking after your family? And I've often thought about this, and really it was as if the two pressures balanced each other. And the thing that really has made a difference is that, to me, what you might call work is not something that is work to me. Work is what I want to do. There's nothing else I want. It's not just something I do when I'd rather be doing something else. To me, it has some real achievement. So I'm very proud of my books. They are very personal. They are not academic, but I hope that there's a real meaningful message on each page.
Absolutely, and I would just like to take their names. So there's So to Speak and there's Let It Go, and both books are sold in aid of Autistica, which is her foundation. You can go to this website, and I will also put this on mail for everyone so that they can will check these books out and probably buy them. And since they're personal, they're not academic, as ma'am mentioned. So everyone should give it a try. All right.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah. So my next question to you is, a lot of scientists in the past and the present have compared computers to human brains. So the structure, the mechanisms, how malleable they are, etc. And now we see these concepts being replicated in artificial intelligence, machine learning. So would you necessarily agree to this comparison?
It's a classic comparison that makes you at least think about what the human mind is all about. Computers, I think, can learn a lot from the biology of the brain. But what is a human person? Is it brain? Is it heart? What is the spirit of humanity? And I think the important thing is, in artificial intelligence and in general life, is to concentrate on the things that really make a difference to people. And remember that people are worldwide, people are generally vulnerable, people are generally good, that they are not to be categorized and put it. So there are things we can learn from the brain. There are things that we can learn from computer theory. I love computing. I also love people. So where do we go from there?
Yes, absolutely. That's a wonderful thought. All right. So this will be my last question to you, after which we will be opening it up to the audience to ask questions. So my last question to you is, how do you keep yourself motivated, and any final piece of advice that you would just like to give to all the budding girls and boys in STEM?
Well, the motivation, I'm quite clear about that, and I have been clear for a long time. The motivation for my drive, for my energy, comes from my refugee start. I had a very poor start in life. I realized how lucky I am. People saved me, they educated me, they fed me, and it's a question of giving back and recognizing the generosity of the human soul. So that hasn't changed, and it is a very strong motivator. I don't fritter my time away. I care for the things that have really been important in my life and in other people's lives, of course. So the motivation is strong and doesn't seem to get any weaker with the years. What was the other bit of your question?
It was, if you have any final piece of advice you would like to give to budding girls.
Final thought.
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to think about Girls for STEM in India. It's a country I don't know. My husband actually knows it. But how can you, let me really try and think of some summary. If you want to go into STEM, there's absolutely nothing stopping you. Science and technology and engineering and mathematics. Sometimes the M stands for medicine, but these are all open to girls and women. And the joy that can be engendered by working in these things. They're well paid, they're exciting. The exciting thing about technology is that it's always changing, always moving, and it's moving even faster. And there is no end point, so that we are never bored with the technology. So if you want to get into this field, find some sector that you know and care about, get trained in it. Make sure that you're really the leading edge, because you have to have continuous training, and then just go for it and enjoy life.
Wow, that is invaluable advice. Thank you so much for that. All right, so let's pick up a few questions from the audience now. So Rajshri
Let me
has
get a
asked,
pen. Yeah, okay.
so Rajshri has asked, Ma'am, I absolutely loved your answer about the computer and brain comparison. I also watched your TED Talk and I'm a fan. I wanted to ask you, if you were given a chance to go back in time and redo things, how would you do them differently?
You mean in my life?
Yes.
I think I would learn financial skills earlier. I'm still, it's not something that the finances of a business do not interest me. So I have become just merely competent, but I wish I had got those skills much earlier. I was so focused on the technology and how exciting it was. And oh, look, you could do this. Oh, John is doing it in a different way. We were learning at an enormous rate. And I would like now, looking back with wisdom, I hope, to think how some financial skills, some business skills would have helped me.
All right. Okay. So Zen Jacob has asked, as a male, I've always been angered at the discrimination of women, especially in STEM. Do you have any advice for something I can do in my career to make the field for more inclusive and welcoming towards women?
But I think Ben can really learn to become allies to women, to stand up for minority sectors. They can become allies. I mean, I'm an ally for Black Lives Matter. I don't do very much, but I'm definitely an ally. And so it means speaking out. It means looking for opportunities for women. It means bringing on ambitious young women and giving them the opportunities that they may feel are closed for them. It means advising them, mentoring them, not making friends necessarily, but giving introductions, giving guidelines, giving comments, opening some doors for them. These are the things that people have experienced, men and women, but men in particular, I hope are learning to do. Women still behave very much as a minority group, and we're not a minority. 50% of the population, I think even 51%. This really, you cannot ignore this. I've lost vision. I have lost vision. I can still hear, I hope. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. We can hear you. We can see you as well.
Oh, you've come back. Good.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's have the next question then.
Perfect. Okay. So Brian has asked, how do you feel about humans trying to automate everything around them and thus the continuous devaluation to manual labor?
Well, we've stopped asking people to do physical labor. Much of that is now done by robots. And we take that for granted, that we haven't got people in factories hammering metal. And on the intellectual side, we shouldn't be asking people to do things that machines can do. And so I, for example, am using robots to teach children with autism, so that they are becoming part of, they're sort of merging in with the human society. And I believe, I mean, I've got a pacemaker heart. In 50 years' time, I think that people might have a pacemaker brain. These are not out of vision. It does need a lot of ethical thought to make sure that when we marry machines and humans, that we don't diminish the human spirit. But it will happen, and it's up to all of us with technical skills and technical interest to ensure that it happens well. Hope that helps, Bran.
Yes, thank you. And Kausha doesn't have a question, but she has a comment which I would just like to read out. So she has said, "Ma'am, I really love your generosity of giving back to society and considering it to be one of your duties. I wish you keep doing more generous work. Thank you for inspiring me."
That is very kind. I shall continue to work, and as time runs out, you begin to get, I must do this, I can still do that.
Absolutely. All right. So the next question is from Amika. She is asked, do you believe that there is some sort of pattern or formula to becoming a successful entrepreneur?
I'm not sure I heard, do I believe something about entrepreneurs? Are we talking about the skills of an entrepreneur?
Yes. Yeah. So is there a certain formula? Yeah, continue.
Well, people ask, are entrepreneurs, are we born or develop? I'm quite clear that it's a development thing. Obviously, some families are more innovative, but you can, children can be encouraged to be entrepreneurial by asking questions, by answering questions. And entrepreneurs, we're always valued for our successes. And I've had a few. But what is really important about entrepreneurs is how we deal with failures. And that's a metaphor of how we deal with failures in life as well. We do have to have that resilience to pick ourselves up after a failure, to try and learn and harvest from our errors, and try and move on in a positive way. My memoir is called Let It Go, which is a Buddhist principle. And it really means not letting the mistakes of the past, the horrors of the past, drive the future. And so each day starts fresh. A scientist can move on, build on my own experience, on other people's experience. This is how society moves on.
Absolutely. And in fact, Sarah just asked that question, that how you deal with failures to keep moving forward when the journey ahead looks hazy. So that has been answered. Prakriti has asked, what are some skills or ideas we as young people should inculcate early on to make the world a better place?
I think one can start fairly early on thinking of this, what is my decision? What do I think about this? Not what I read in the newspapers, not what somebody tells me, not even what my parents tell me, but what do I think about this with my education and with my relatively short experience of life? What can we learn? Can I learn from books? Can I learn? And by having that spirit of learning, of always wishing to extend, I think you can encourage a child to start to be innovative, to start to think in terms of creating things. And why do we create things? Now, some people do set up companies in order to make money. What they do with the money, if they make it, I don't know. But there's not much pleasure in that. Whereas when you aim to do something that really makes a difference in the world, you see, I was part of making that happen. That's a very happy and satisfying thing to do.
Absolutely. We have another comment from Noor. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Thanks so much, ma'am. Greetings from Azerbaijan. I'm loving to teach my STEM students, and I agree with all your thoughts. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. That's very kind.
All right. Now, Gabriel has asked, as a philanthropist, what do you look for in ambitious young people? I really admire how you mentor them. What tells you that they'll make it?
Oh, nearly everybody can make it. You just have to have a helping hand. I don't believe that there is some future that is necessarily poor for this person and good for that. We all have the opportunities. And what we have to do when we work in teams and when we work in families is to really think of more than just yourself. How have I got ambition for the project? Can I bring to the project some skill or energy or drive or ideas, or innovation is of course so important, can I really make a difference? And I think that is within each and every person.
Absolutely. And Gabrielle has asked another question. She's asked, when you had to let men into the company, what challenges arose?
Well, in 1975, which seems a long time ago, equal opportunities legislation came in Britain, so it made it illegal to have our company of women. So we had to let the men in, and the first tranche of men that came in probably applied for all the wrong reasons. They were a bright group of successful women, but we didn't really know how to interview them because we were used to women with our habit of denigrating. Well, of course, I know a little bit about this. I'm not sure about that. I think I could learn how to do that. Whereas a man will say, yes, of course I could do that. And we got caught by that and had a wave of people who were not very successful in the company, and we gradually had to let them go. So it was difficult. But as with diversity, bringing women into a corporate workforce, so bringing men into our women's company also enlivened it, widened it, broadened it, and made it much more fun.
Absolutely. And she said, thank you so much for answering that. This is a burning question for me when I watched your TED Talk. All right. So yeah. So the next question is from Griva. Griva has asked, was there any one person who supported you the most in your lifetime and will stay indelible forever? And also, in what way did that person support you? And she also has a small comment attached, which is, I admire the way your thoughts are. Being against all stereotypes is really commendable, and how you were full of strength at your hard times.
I'm not sure that I understood all that question, but let's have a go. The person who have really made an influence in my life, some of them are people in books. I'm inspired by people who have lived in the past and have made a difference in the world. My foster parents made a real difference to me, not only by feeding me, but they gave me unconditional love and total acceptance, and that made a great deal of difference to me. From the professional point of view, I don't think I had what's called a mentor at all, but I did look at one of my bosses, a guy called Tommy Flowers, who's quite well known in the computer industry, and he not inspired me, but I looked at him and thought, that's the sort of manager I want to be. What was special about him? He was technically very clever. He was designing early computers. He was a gentleman. He was never sexist. He listened, and that taught me a great deal to listen more, listen very positively. He took ideas from everybody in the team. He was, I really think I learned a lot from him. I only just about knew him. You know, good morning, Mr. Flowers would be what I was saying, because I was about 20 years old, or your age. So that's quite important. What was the end of your question?
The end was just a comment, so it wasn't a question. She was just appreciating how you go against all stereotypes and how you were full of strength even at your hard times.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next question is from Sarah. She says, are there any books that you would recommend that are a must read for young women?
Oh, of course. Of course. It's my book.
Absolutely.
I read autobiographies to learn how other people have dealt with success and dealt with failures, made things happen. There's a lot to be learned from that. In particular, the one book that made a significant difference to me, and is now very old-fashioned, is a book by Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because when I started in business, when I started in the IT sector, I thought I was very clever. Let me show you how to do this. I know how to do this. Very didactic, very, not bossy, but I was not, to a certain extent, I probably frightened people. And then I learned to show my vulnerability and say, I'm having difficulty with this project. Will you help me with it? And those were the sorts of steps in my personal development that I got from that book. So the things that really make a difference are the human things. The things that you can learn, the things that you must learn, the things you must understand. The things that make a difference are the people, the personalities, the relationships. Everything is relationships.
Absolutely. And I have just linked the website for your book, Let It Go, and so to speak, in the chat box. And I think this marks the end of such a wonderful session. Thank you so much for being with us. We're so thankful to have you.
It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you. And I hope you had a great time too. And it was fun. And wow, we're getting so many comments from everyone. Kashish has said it was absolutely humbling to know your journey from a refugee as a child to a successful IT entrepreneur and an ardent philanthropist.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. Wow, we're getting a lot of comments. It's really nice.
And goodbye to you all from England.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lynn Hart, ma'am, for corresponding with me continuously and making sure that we would, exchange everything, get everything set for this conference. Thanks a lot.
Good.